Of course I looked, wouldn't you? After you heard about the woman in the woods, the woman who, if you saw her once, would haunt and stalk you, moving closer and closer, watching you every night. If you heard there was a woman like that outside your house, wouldn't you be burning with curiosity? Wouldn't you at one point give up and just see if it was really true? I did. Of course I did. But I am saying this now with a warning. If you live close to the woods, even a collection of trees, even a big meadow, don't look for her. You can look, but not with the purpose of finding her. You will regret it. I did. I do. I moved into my house just a month ago. It's in a small town, down a remote path next to a river. My neighbor's house is the only close house for miles. I moved out here to get some peace and quiet, to get away from my just finished divorce and my kids who I lost in the process. They're better off without me anyway. I never was a good father. I've only seen my neighbor once. When I moved in, I naturally rang the doorbell to introduce myself, but there was no answer. I saw him 3 weeks ago standing in his driveway. He wore a brown suit, a hat, and shiny black shoes. He just stared into the forest. I yelled, "Hey man!" He didn't flinch. He just stared blankly into the forest like he was expecting someone to come running out there. I walked over my yard and went up to him and extended my arm to shake his hand. He didn't move. "I'm your new neighbor. I've never seen you before. My name is Martin." He just stared for a while like he didn't know I was there. I turned around to walk back when he said, "She comes out right from there." He pointed to the forest. "Who?" He just kept staring. "I don't know, but she comes every night. Closer and closer." At first I saw her just staring between the trees. I don't sleep much, so I looked at her all night. She just stood there, staring. I looked away for a second and then she was gone. Over the next few weeks she kept coming closer, out of the forest, standing in the river knee-deep, on my driveway, just outside the window. She even got so close that she pressed her face against my window. Every time she stayed all night, and then when I looked away for a second, it felt like sometimes I didn't even have time to blink before she was gone. I felt a bit uneasy. "That's strange. Have you called the police?" He didn't answer. After that, he just turned around and walked back towards his house. With his back to me, he said, "Don't look for her. They say that if you see her once, you see her every night. For me, it's too late." Would you look for her? Wouldn't you be curious? I sure as hell couldn't stop thinking about it. I was laying awake at night, wondering if it was true, wondering if she was there, wondering if I was watched. Of course I looked. At first I didn't see anything, just a dark forest behind the lake. I was relieved. But what I thought was a tree, or maybe a rock, was actually a slender woman with a dark dress. I looked closely. My neighbor was right. There she was, watching me. 2 red dots were shining on her face, the way your pupils look when you take a picture with the flash. But there was no white in her eyes, just red. Just like my neighbor said, every night she got closer. It really freaked me out when she was in the lake, the water covering her all up to those red dots. How could she breathe under there? Some nights I thought she was gone, but then I realized she was under the water in the lake. She came closer and closer. After 2 weeks, she was on my lawn, and just a few days later, she was just outside my door. She was scratching on the outside of the door with what must have been extremely long and sharp fingernails. She was actually moving her feet. She was walking in place, unable to move because of the door. She wanted to get inside. This went on for a few days. I sometimes looked out the peephole and saw only her red eyes pressed against it as she were dragging her feet yet standing in place. Then she spoke. In an unnatural, lifeless voice, she said, "Can I borrow some sugar?" Her intonation was off. She wasn't saying it as if she meant it, not even as if she fully understood what it meant. Like if you would have taught a cat to speak, or like when someone learns a phrase in a language they can't speak. She didn't say it just that once. She repeated it with the exact same intonation over and over as if being on a loop. "Can I borrow some sugar? Can 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 I borrow some sugar?" That went on all night, every night. I couldn't sleep anymore. I couldn't eat either. I tried not to sleep during the days because that was the only time I could somewhat relax. I checked into a hotel, yet I couldn't sleep. I was just waiting for her. I looked out at the parking lot. No one there. I still couldn't get those red shining dots out of my mind. She was out there somewhere, slowly moving closer, though it would take her a while. But she was out there. There was no doubt in my mind. And I was right. Sometime later, she was in the parking lot. She stood there for a few nights, then she disappeared. Yes, I know. She disappeared, but she wasn't gone. She was in the hotel. No one could probably see her because it seems like the only ones who can are those who look for her. I didn't see her for a couple of nights, but then she caught up with me. What I did next, I'm not sure was because of the sleep deprivation or just being naive, but there was a scraping on the door. "Room service." I should have realized that no room service comes at 3 a.m. I shouldn't have been so naive. Not even naive, just plain stupid. Because I opened the door. There she was. Dirty, long, wet hair. Long, pointy, sharp fingernails. Black dress. Barefoot. Pale as a sheet. Sickly slender. And those red, dilated pupils which covered her whole eyes. That was the last thing I remember. Now I'm in the hospital. I've been in a coma for a couple of days. I've had radical surgery and it was unclear if I would make it. I'm missing a hand and 3 fingers on the other. I have no teeth. My stomach is filled with scars, and my legs are even worse. The doctors haven't let me see my face yet, but it had been operated on several times. So I beg you, all of you who lives nearby a forest, don't look for her. This is my warning to you. If you hear someone talk about her, don't get curious, because this is my punishment for being curious, for not taking my neighbor's advice. For heaven's sake, don't look for her. Don't look. Thank you, Spooks and Spookettes, for joining me for this reading. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, I would really appreciate a like on this video. If you think you have a story for me to read, I will leave links below where you can send it. I also look forward to reading any comments left down below. If you'd like to join me for more, there's always a subscribe and notification buttons that would really make my day. If you're not ready to subscribe just yet, I hope you will check out my other videos. Thanks again, and wishing you sweet nightmares.